All right, let's begin. What I'm about to share with you today is not just motivational, it's biological. It's hard science and it's personal because every single one of us has a brain that tries to run the show. But the truth is, you are not your brain, you are the operator. And once you understand how to use this remarkable, adaptable, sometimes chaotic structure that lives inside your skull, you can change everything. Your habits, your focus, your emotions, even your future. Now, let's talk about a concept that people often overlook, and it might sound strange at first. But hear me out, you are not your thoughts. Most people live their entire lives believing every single thing that pops into their head. A thought comes in, I'm not good enough, I'll never change, I don't feel like doing this, and they take it as truth. They internalize it. They allow it to shape their identity, their behavior, and their self-perception. But I want to make something very clear. A thought is just a neural event, a short-lived activation pattern in the brain. It's electrical, it's chemical, it is not a directive, it is not a command, and it certainly is not always true. Let me explain what's happening at the neural level when a thought arises. Inside your brain, you have roughly 86 billion neurons, each with up to 10, 0 synaptic connections. These neurons are in constant communication. Thoughts emerge when specific neural circuits fire in response to a stimulus external, like something you see, or internal, like a memory or emotion. These are automatic processes. You don't choose the first thought, but you can absolutely choose how you relate to it. That's the first layer of control, the idea that you can observe a thought instead of becoming it. This is the separation between stimulus and response. It's the gap where choice lies, and that's where power lies. If you're someone who struggles with negative self-talk, anxiety, or self-doubt, I want you to understand this deeply. Your brain is designed to favor negative information. It's called the negativity bias. It's survival MECHANI, active as SM. Thousands of years ago, it was safer for your ancestors to overestimate threats than to underestimate them. If you heard a rustle in the bushes and assumed it was a predator, you might survive. If you assumed it was just the wind and you were wrong, you die. So, the human brain evolved to prioritize fear, to amplify threat, and to hardwire caution. This ancient circuitry still operates today. The difference is, instead of saber-toothed tigers, we have emails, traffic, deadlines, and social comparison. But the brain reacts to these things with the same old fear circuits. The amygdala lights up, cortisol spikes. Your heart races, and your internal dialogue starts to spiral. I'm behind, I'm failing, I can't do this. The brain is doing what it was designed to do. It's not malfunctioning, but it is outdated, and so you have to learn to override it. You override it by becoming the observer. That means training your awareness to notice thoughts as events, not truths. A very simple but powerful practice for this is something called labeling. When a thought arises, especially a negative one, instead of reacting, you label it. Here's a fear-based thought. This is a self-critical thought. This is a doubt. The act of labeling engages the prefrontal cortex, the rational, decision-making part of the brain, and reduces activity in the emotional centers. It literally moves you from reactive to reflective. There's a study from UCLA that showed this effect very clearly. Participants who labeled emotions like anger or fear showed reduced activity in the amygdala and increased activation in the prefrontal cortex. What does that mean? It means simply recognizing and naming your thoughts helps regulate your nervous system. It's not just philosophical, it's neurological. Now, let me give you something even more actionable. This is a tool I call visual anchoring. When a negative thought loop hits, especially one that feels overwhelming or repetitive, you want to reintroduce control into the system. Here's what you do. 1. Stop whatever you're doing. 2. Look at a fixed point in the environment, a door frame, a light switch, a tree. 3. Breathe in through your nose slowly for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, then exhale slowly for 8 seconds. 4. While doing that, say out loud or in your mind, "This is a thought. I am not this thought. Why does this work?" You're engaging both the visual system and the parasympathetic nervous system simultaneously. The long exhale triggers the vagus nerve, which calms the body. The fixed gaze reduces motion, induced stress signals. The self-talk reorients your mind. Together, you are lowering physiological arousal and reclaiming cognitive control. This is the science of agency. This is how you go from being trapped by your mind to training it. And speaking of training, it brings me to the next truth that most people need to hear, whether they're 15 or 50. Your brain is a muscle. It is not your master. We often speak about discipline, motivation, and willpower like they're character traits. But they're not. They are trainable neural pathways. Every time you resist an impulse, every time you choose to do the hard thing instead of the easy thing, you are literally strengthening specific circuits in the brain. You are reinforcing the prefrontal cortex's ability to regulate emotion, override habit, and delay gratification. In other words, discipline is not a gift, it's a skill, and like all skills, it improves with practice. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine you walk through a grassy field once, you leave a faint trail, walk that same path every day, and the grass gets trampled. A dirt path forms. Eventually, it becomes the default way through the field. Your brain operates the same way. The more you activate a circuit, be it procrastination, scrolling, discipline, focus, the easier it becomes for your brain to follow that path next time. This is neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself based on behavior, attention, and intention. It's not theory, it's fact, and it's been proven in hundreds of studies. You are constantly changing your brain, whether you mean to or not. The question is, are you changing it on purpose? I want to offer you a mindset shift. Don't ask yourself, how do I feel about doing this task? Ask, what kind of brain am I building right now by doing it? Because every action is a vote for the future version of you. Every time you choose to work when it's hard, to study when you're tired, to go to the gym when it's cold, you are building neural strength. You are conditioning your brain to follow your commands instead of your cravings. Now, there's a structure in the brain called the anterior cingulate cortex. It plays a major role in error detection, emotional regulation, and decision-making. When you're learning something new or trying to resist a habit, this region becomes more active. It's what helps you course correct. Think of it as your internal coach. The more you challenge your brain, learn, adapt, resist, the more this region grows in efficiency. That's right, your brain doesn't just change metaphorically, it changes structurally. And this leads to something I tell people all the time. You can become mentally strong the same way you become physically strong. Through progressive overload, you don't walk into the gym and bench 300 pounds on day one. You start with what you can handle, and you push just beyond your comfort zone. You rest, you recover, then you do it again. It's the same with mental control. Start with small challenges. Delay checking your phone for 10 minutes in the morning. Sit in silence for 5 minutes. Finish a task before giving yourself a reward. Over time, these small wins build self-trust. They teach your brain, I am in charge. Let me give you a tool I use almost every day. I call it the 90-second rule. When I don't feel like starting something, writing, working out, preparing for a lecture, I say to myself, just do it for 90 seconds, no pressure to finish. Just start. Here's what happens. Once the action begins, dopamine starts to rise, momentum takes over. The brain shifts from resistance to engagement. 90 seconds is the gateway. Use it. You'll be shocked at how often starting is all you needed. And for those of you who say, I'm just not a disciplined person, I want you to challenge that identity. Your identity is just the story your brain tells you, based on past behavior, but the brain is plastic. That means you can change the story by changing the pattern. Don't wait to feel disciplined, act disciplined, and your brain will catch up. Here's the last thing I want to share in this section, and it might be the most important. Your brain loves patterns. It wants to predict, it wants to automate, that's how it saves energy. So when you repeat a behavior, even if it's unhealthy, the brain learns, this is safe, this is familiar. That's why change feels hard, not because you're weak, but because your brain is trying to protect the known. But the known is not always what's best for you. You have to teach your brain that growth is the new safety. That hard is the new normal, that discomfort is the doorway to control, and you do that one choice at a time. Let's get into something practical, something you can apply tomorrow morning, actually, even better tonight before you go to bed. Because this is where real leverage lives. The brain is most programmable at 2 points in your day, right when you wake up and right before you fall asleep. These are transition phases in your neurochemistry. During these windows, your brain shifts between internal and external modes of attention. Cortisol, dopamine, serotonin, and acetylcholine all move into new balances. These are openings, neural openings for either chaos or control. You get to decide. Let's zero in on the morning, because that's where most people lose the day without even realizing it. You wake up, roll over, grab your phone, bang, instant surge of dopamine from notifications, emails, texts. Maybe even a hit of cortisol from seeing something stressful, bad news, deadlines, a reminder of what you haven't done. That 10 seconds, that's not just a moment. That's your brain getting conditioned. You're teaching it. Wake up equals overwhelm. Wake up equals distraction. Wake up equals dopamine without effort, and you're doing it before your feet even touch the floor. Now, I'm not here to tell you to never use your phone. I use mine, but you need to understand the system your brain operates on. It's called dopaminergic reinforcement. When your brain gets dopamine, it tags the preceding behavior as valuable. So if your first dopamine hit of the day comes from passively consuming content, guess what you've just trained your brain to crave more of? Passive consumption, distraction, not creation, not intention, not effort. This is why so many people feel scattered, anxious, or lazy by 10 a.m., even if they haven't done anything yet. The brain is already spun out. The fix, it's not complicated, but it is deliberate. Take control of the first 10 minutes of your day. That's your prime programming window. How you direct your attention in that window sets the tone for everything that follows. So here's what I recommend. It's what I do. It's what I've advised elite athletes, military special operators, and top entrepreneurs to do. And it works. First thing, light. Get natural sunlight in your eyes within 30 to 60 minutes of waking. Why? Because your circadian rhythm, the internal 24-hour clock that regulates sleep, energy, mood, metabolism, depends on light input through the retina. Specifically, it activates neurons in the suprachiasmatic nucleus that signal to the rest of the body, it's time to be alert, time to perform. That early light exposure boosts cortisol, yes, the right kind of cortisol, and sets your brain into an optimal state of alertness for the next several hours. If you're waking up before sunrise, use bright indoor lights. But as soon as the sun is up, get outside. Even if it's cloudy, even if it's cold, 5 minutes is good. 10 minutes is better. Do not negotiate with yourself here. This is non-negotiable. Your brain chemistry depends on it. Next, movement. You don't need a full workout. Just get your body moving. Push-ups, a walk, breath work. Anything that engages the motor system. Why? Because movement increases norepinephrine, which enhances focus and alertness. It primes the system. It tells your brain, we're alive, we're active, let's go. Remember, your body doesn't just support your brain. It signals your brain, now the most important part, attention. What do you focus on in those first 10 minutes? Because whatever you focus on, you reinforce. If you focus on what's missing, you build anxiety. If you focus on what matters, you build clarity. So ask yourself this question every morning. What's the most important thing for me to make progress on today? Not what's urgent. Not what's easy, what's important, get specific, then write it down, no scrolling, no reacting, just intention. One sentence, that's enough. That's how you teach your brain to prioritize deliberate action over passive reaction. Here's the neurochemical side of this. Early in the day, your dopamine system is most responsive to prediction error. That means you're most sensitive to the gap between where you are and where you want to be. That's powerful. That's motivation fuel. Use it. Set the intention. Start the system. Prime the brain. And I want to be clear about this. It's not about perfection. It's about pattern. If you take control of your morning 4 days out of 7, you're building momentum. You're conditioning your mind to associate waking up with ownership, not overwhelm, and that changes everything. Now let's talk about what drives that ownership. Let's go deep into the chemistry of drive itself, the real engine. The molecule of motivation, dopamine, you've probably heard about it. Maybe you think of it as the pleasure chemical. But that's not the full story. In fact, dopamine is less about pleasure and more about pursuit. It's about wanting, not having. It's the neurochemical that says, go, chase, work, win at every goal, every ambition, every craving. Dopamine is behind it. But here's the catch. Dopamine isn't just floating around randomly. It follows rules. And if you don't understand those rules, dopamine will control you. But if you do understand them, you can control it. And when you can control dopamine, you can control your focus, your habits, and your life. Let me walk you through this. Dopamine is released in response to rewards, but more powerfully, in response to the expectation of reward. This is why anticipation is often more powerful than the outcome itself. You check your phone because you expect something exciting. You open the fridge not because you're hungry, but because you might find something tasty. That's dopamine at work. Now, the problem isn't dopamine itself. The problem is how we trigger it. When you constantly get dopamine from low effort, high reward activities like scrolling, snacking, gambling, porn, or binge watching, you condition your brain to crave stimulation without effort. That's what leads to burnout, apathy, even depression. Why? Because your baseline dopamine drops. Let me explain this clearly. Every time you spike dopamine artificially, the brain compensates by reducing its sensitivity to dopamine. It's a homeostatic system, so over time, the same stimulus gives you less reward, and you need more of it to feel the same effect. That's addiction, that's fatigue, that's the feeling of nothing excites me anymore. But here's the good news, the reverse is also true. When you start earning dopamine, when you train your brain to associate dopamine with effort, you reset the system. You raise the baseline, you reclaim your drive. This is what high performers do whether they know the science or not. They link the reward not just to the outcome, but to the process. They take joy in the work, and neurologically, that's a game changer. There's a study from Stanford that showed people who were extrinsically motivated, meaning they worked for rewards, had less activation in their dopamine pathways than people who were intrinsically motivated. In other words, when you love the grind, not just the gold, you get more dopamine, you build more resilience, you become more powerful. So how do you train that? You start by pairing effort with reward consciously. After you finish a hard workout, don't just move on. Pause and acknowledge the work. Say it out loud. That was hard. I did it. After you study, after you write, after you practice, celebrate the effort. That creates a neurochemical association between struggle and satisfaction, and that's how you build grit. Another tool, intermittent rewards. If you want to supercharge dopamine, make rewards unpredictable. Don't give yourself a treat every time you finish a task. Randomize it. The brain loves novelty. Use it. Gamify your progress. Surprise yourself. And here's a critical insight. When you feel low motivation, don't chase pleasure. Chase challenge, because challenge triggers growth, and growth restores dopamine. This is why cold exposure works. Why intense workouts work, why hard conversations work. They spike dopamine not just by the outcome, but by the effort itself. You're signaling to your brain, we do hard things and we like it. That rewires your drive. I use a tool every day called deliberate discomfort. It means doing something hard, small but consistent, every day. For me, it's cold showers. For you, it might be waking up early or fasting or finishing the thing you've been avoiding. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is the signal you send. I control the input. I earn the reward. Because once you take back control of dopamine, you take back control of your focus, your habits, your drive. And let me leave you with this truth: dopamine is not just about feeling good, it's about becoming better. Every time you do the hard thing, every time you delay gratification, every time you choose growth over comfort, you're not just getting stronger. You're training your brain to serve you. You're reminding it, I'm in charge here. And that's the essence of mental control. Not suppressing your biology, but understanding it, leveraging it, training it. You have the power to rewire your mind. Not because it's easy, but because it's possible, and the science is on your side.